As President Bongbong Marcos signed this year's national budget, he also declared that he trimmed it further. That's to remove most of the unprogrammed appropriations amounting to more than 90 billion pesos.
But some lawmakers are still not convinced it's soft pork proof. One congressman is even planning to challenge the General Appropriations Act before the Supreme Court.
Questions also remain on aid or ayuda programs and flood control, which are still receiving funding under the 2026 budget. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza with tonight's big story.
A few days after the end of the fiscal year, or on January 5, 2026, President Bongbong Marcos finally signed the 6.7 trillion peso national budget. But some items in the spending bill submitted by the Bicameral Conference Committee did not make the final cut. Among those vetoed were unprogrammed appropriations or UA worth 92.5 billion pesos. The fund covers budgetary support for government-owned and controlled corporations or GOCCs, the Philippine government's counterpart for foreign-assisted projects, and the so-called prior year's local government unit shares. No UA as well for the Comprehensive Automotive Resurgence Strategy or CARS program, revitalizing the automotive industry for competitiveness enhancement or RACE program, for comprehensive and adequate insurance protection of strategically important government assets and interests, and payment of personal services requirements. Only 3 items under unprogrammed appropriations remained: support for foreign assistance projects, the 97 billion peso revised AFP modernization program, and the 50 billion peso risk management program.
We acknowledge the support of Congress in limiting the unprogrammed appropriations to essential needs. However, I push further and reduce it to the absolute bare minimum. This shall be at the level lowest since 2019. Let me be clear. The unprogrammed appropriations are not blank checks. We will not allow the unprogrammed appropriations to be misused or treated as a backdoor for discretionary spending.
Yung pag-validate yan, of course, aside from that validation, we need to, of course, kailangan natin ma-meet yung requirements or even triggers. One is, when we have excess revenue, that's the time that we can also unlock that program. It should be aligned with the plan of the national government. Second, it should have ready for implementation, of course. And of course, yung ating prioritization as far as the agency is concerned.
But there's that lingering question on MyFIP, or the medical assistance for indigent and financially and other aid or ayuda programs under the 2026 budget, which are vulnerable to patronage politics. But as Marcos puts it, bawal ang epal.
Politicians shall be barred from the distribution of any financial aid, and we shall ensure that the support reaches the intended beneficiaries without patronage. Walang bawas, walang kulang.
There is a special provision in the budget or a general provision in the budget na bawal yung mga politiko during the actual disbursement or the actual pamimigay nito sa mga kababayan natin. So susundan natin yung guidelines na yan under the General Appropriations Act of 2026. Wala yan dati.
Then, there are the confidential funds, which amount to 11.8 billion under this year's appropriations. 4.5 billion of this will go to the Office of the President. But despite the name, Malacanang insists that they will be transparent with this fund.
OP reports directly to the Senate President and to the Speaker of the House. So the OP submits reports to the House of Representatives and to the Senate President.
Sir, last na talaga from...
Yes, sir. Another point of contention, 15.7 billion still allotted to flood control. But the President says the fund is for foreign assistance infra projects which already have contracts. On One Balita Pilipinas, Congressman Egay Arisa acknowledged that despite his no vote for the 2026 budget, it was still cleaner and a far cry for the country's spending funds between 2023 and 2025. But he is still challenging unprogrammed appropriations before the Supreme Court.
Nakita ko kasi, yan yung pinagmula ng mga malalaking anomalya noong nakaraan. Right. For example, yung 399 billion in the 2024 and 2025 budget na nakalaan para sa equity ng mga foreign assisted projects Sa halip na gawing program funds o mandatory yung pagbabayad, ay inilagay ito sa unprogrammed funds. Yung unprogrammed funds, wala namang source of financing yan.
For her part, House Deputy Minority Leader Laila De Lima called the remaining unprogrammed appropriations shadow pork. She took note of Executive Secretary Ralph Recta's admission that they can no longer collect any more excess revenue. So De Lima wonders, isn't it illogical to have unprogrammed appropriations in the first place? Makabayan collectively criticized the 8 billion peso fund per NTF-LCAC support under the Barangay Development Program. They call it the General's Pork Barrel, which allegedly funds militarization and counterinsurgency operations that terrorize communities. And for Senate President Tito Soto, however, this is the cleanest budget ever. He also commended how the President highlighted the Senate provision that prevents political patronage. Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson said he's also happy and satisfied with the 2026 national budget. But he believes the UAs could be trimmed further to just the foreign assistance projects and the revised AFP modernization program. For Senator Bam Aquino, the most commendable in this year's budget is the 1.3 trillion peso budget for the education sector, the highest in history. Kapatid Mobile Journal Julie Baiza, We Are One News.